Hi, everyone, and welcome to another A&B Horror Movies video. I'm Aaron.
I'm Ben. And today we have a very special guest on, director and writer, Dave Roberts. He is the director and writer of Older Gods, and he has an upcoming movie called Patriarch, which we will talk about later on in the video. But first,
And
Dave.
Well, actually, and Dave, you co-founded or partnered with Wagyu Films.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
since 2005, which we'll talk about as well.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys. No, I appreciate it. Fan of the show. So, but yeah, no, it's we've got Older Gods out at the moment, Cosmic Horror, which I'm assuming we're going to get into about Cosmic Horror, and Patriarch's kind of the next project in line. So yeah, but no, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you on. Ben, do you want me to do the first question?
Yeah, I've got to say, it's nice to have somebody on my side of the pond.
Just to have silly references that nobody else gets apart from me and you.
And for once, it's like morning for me and early afternoon for you guys.
Yeah,
thought I would take one for the team and do an early
Ben, are you
morning.
usually recording late at night, are you? Where the Americans have a nice time in the afternoon.
We do. God, what's the latest, Ben? You did one at midnight your time.
Yeah.
Up to like 2 in the morning.
Trying to stay peppy, trying to say all energy at midnight. I suppose he
was starting to doze off a little.
Sorry, anyway, Aaron.
Let's see. So first of all, Older Gods, congratulations. It's your debut film. Very well done, very scary in a subtle way, creepy, atmospheric. So many positive things I could say about it. Congratulations and well done.
Thanks so much.
My first question, and you're welcome. My first question for you is, can you tell us a little bit about how Older Gods came about? What was the ideation phase? Was it a script you've been working on for years, or?
No, it wasn't. It was so we were working on like Ben said, a project called Patriarch, which is more of a kind of a sci-fi thriller, which is one we've got on the pipeline now. So we got to the point where we were casting it. We found all the locations. We were getting, but it was a much bigger budget than Older Gods. We were just about to go. We were about a month away for filming, and then boom, I think there was some kind of worldwide pandemic or something that apparently slowed everything down. So as soon as that happened, something like that. I can't remember. It got to the point where we just couldn't. Then everybody goes into lockdown, and Patriarch was a very multiple location, loads of people type film. And our production company, Wagyu Films, we cut our teeth on and we've done 1,000 commercials and music videos and things like that. We started off small, just a couple of us, and then we started growing and growing until there's about 20 of us, and we're doing commercials for huge brands like DHL and Jaguar, Land Rover, and so we were getting to the point where the original plan was we were going to do this commercial nonsense for about 6 months, and then we were just going to make feature films, and that's what we were going to do. And then 10 years later, it actually just. But the good part of slowly growing like that was the fact that we had a team. So we had all the department heads. We actually had all the camera gear and the post-production facilities and visual effects and blah, 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 all in-house. So you're quite a good sell to an investor, shall we say. So it's just like they've just got to pay for the actors and the locations and things like that. So when Patriarch kind of got delayed, we still had some budget left and things like that, where we were just like we're not stopping. That was it, because we built up to this moment. What we're going to do. So it was down to me. So we basically worked out is what can we do with what the materials that we have, so to speak. And let's do the age-old trick of write a script of one person in one location, slowly going mad. Some kind of investigating something's gone wrong. Has he got an old friend that has mysteriously disappeared, and he's turned up to find out what happened, which is not the most original idea in the world, but it's just the fact it's a starting point of what can we do and do it different. So, and so we essentially wrote Older Gods in about 3 months. I know the guys really annoyed me because they booked the location before I'd finished the script. which really really wound me up. It's because it's kind of like, we've got a deadline, you've got to finish, let's get
No
this going.
pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. But it was something that kind of been an idea that we've had for a while. Obviously, I was reading a lot of Lovecraft at the time, which has obviously influenced it quite a lot, which a lot of Lovecraft is somebody finding out about something weird that's happened and going and investigating it. It's not based on any Lovecraft story or anything, but there's themes in there, shall we say. And
very Lovecraftian. There's definitely
it's kind of like it's a genre now, isn't it? Rather than just Lovecraftian stories, it's actually Lovecraftian.
It is, yes, yeah, exactly.
So, which I've heard of some people say it's not Lovecraft enough. It's like, yeah, but it's not written by Lovecraft. So I've had that a couple of times. But no, so it's based around, and there's all kind of, what can we do a little bit different? So not doing nothing but jump scares. There's a couple of cheap jump scares in there, I'll admit, but most of it's based on suspense, and it's a bit of a slow burn, I'll give that, but then it's supposed to ramps up a little bit later on.
Yes.
So it all basically came from starting being creative with what we had in a strange way, where we kind of had everything and lots of investors for this other film. The pandemic happened, and then what can we do? And then we managed to film in between a couple of lockdowns because I think, was it 3 lockdowns we had, Ben, and something like that?
I think so, yeah, it was.
And it was between a couple of the last 2 or something. We were able to film. We filmed for like a week or so in this cottage, and then there was another lockdown, and then we were able to do some reshoot stuff after that as well. So it worked out quite well, and we're quite proud of it. And it's one of those things as well where there's a real true story of writings. There's 3 parts to writing. You write the script, and then you film it, and you find yourself changing lots of things because the location's not working or the actor's not doing something. So you change the story slightly. And then when we edited it as well, we changed a load of things. There's like little bits that we just chopping out sections and things like that. So what we've ended up with is something a bit, I think you summed it up really well there now, and I'd say it was kind of like going for more the kind of suspense and atmospheric rather than either the quiet jump effect, or stabby, which I'm a fan of stabby, but it's but it's not this. I'm a big Halloween fan. I'm a big
oh yeah, same here. Halloween collection right there.
There you go. But Older Gods isn't that, so I think so. You've got kind of, if you're a fan of kind of slow burn, creepy, atmospheric, or people say things like Midsummer, Kill List. Have you seen Kill List?
I love Kill List.
So it's kind of, saying with me, it's not giving away all the answers. It's a bit introducing people.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. Very much like Kill List. It's sort of moody and takes its time, but kind of pulls you in, and the main character is very isolated. And as you're watching it, you sort of get that isolated feeling as well, like you're right there with him.
That's the plan, and I'm trying not to give all the answers away. So we were trying to. I'd like, hopefully, Older Gods to be something you can watch a second time and go, oh right, I see that, because there's a couple of little Easter eggy things at the beginning.
Right,
Ben, I'll let you go. I'll stop talking.
So congrats with the film. I watched it this morning.
Thank you.
And I was actually saying to Aaron, there was a few bits in there that I kind of love in my horror films anyway. And I thought, because The Thing is one of my favourite movies for the atmosphere, and I thought this had a really good atmosphere, like a waiting dread, which I thought was really good. I love the score. The music went brilliant with the film, and
Gerald Buckfield. I'll give him a shout out. Gerald Buckfield. I think the soundtrack's all on YouTube and Spotify and all that. If anybody wants to listen, it's really great.
That was really good. And I just like to say, without saying too much, you cannot be a black hooded figure for a menacing feeling in a film.
It's also a cheap costume. No, but no. But when in doubt, it's because we did. The guy at the end actually has a really detailed prosthetic on his face.
Yeah.
But at the end, when we were editing it, we originally showed it, but it was just kind of building up, and then it's just a guy with scars on his face, but we're always making him kind of out of focus, or he's a shadow, or
and
it actually just made it a bit creepy
I really
and
liked
weird.
That too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. What you don't see is often scariest.
Yeah, and that's it. So, and going back to like The Thing, personally, I mean, I love The Thing. It's one of my favorite films, and the prosthetics are awesome, and things like that. I'd love to do more of that type of thing. But what's really the creepiest parts of The Thing to me is more the humans looking at each other and not knowing who's the thing.
Yeah.
Rather than when the monster actually comes out, it's cool.
The paranoia sets.
The paranoia and something's not right, and the creepiness and not trusting each other, and like surely everybody's watching this has seen The Thing by now, but there's lots of things about, like, even at the end when there's two of them left, is one of them the thing? Is it not? It's actually creepy if neither of them are. Mm-hmm. That's more interesting to me than even though I love the aliens bit. Do you see what I mean? It's the creepiness of what you don't know is what's scary. The scary, which is the whole thing about the cosmic horror, isn't it? The fear of the unknown, and that's what we were trying. Especially, obviously, all the gods done on a budget, so we'd love to have huge, terrifying monsters in it, but it's so you have to rely more on the creativeness of suspense, and what's in our own heads is always scarier than whatever we put on screen.
That's where these monsters come from. So I will ask, actually, I'll get a question. Went off there. I
do it all the time.
Yeah. You was on about location. So was the locations easy? You said one of them was sort of already found for you, but was they easy to find? Did you sort of know what you were going for?
It was well, there's a couple of things. It was in Snowdonia, which is, the tallest mountain in Wales is Snowdon. The area around it's called Snowdonia, and there's loads of places and cottages to stay at. And it's actually a beautiful place to stay if you wanted to take your family or something like that. But hopefully, I think we might have ruined that if somebody's watching
a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to climb this year. So
there you go. I'll nudge you in the right direction of where to find it.
Cool.
But it was tricky because of the pandemic thing, we had to kind of live in a bit of a bubble. So it was, we all kind of sheltered a little bit before going. So we needed to find somewhere which was good and creepy to film at, or at least we can make it look creepy or feel creepy. But we also needed somewhere to house a crew, so we couldn't have loads of, and because it was so remote and I wanted a big opening drone shot where you couldn't see anything for miles, there was no hotels nearby anyway. So you had to all stay in this little cottage, which was interesting. And it also didn't have any drinking water. The water was out of the taps was brown, and it was like the hottest week of the year.
Oh my God.
And we were all dying, and the nearby village kept running out of bottled water. And it's these little things that you think surely this wouldn't be a problem. And it's in Britain. It's not a third world country somewhere. It was just I think it's the fact because it was so remote. It had to build its own water systems to be connected to the general public's water system. And I don't know why it was brown, but it was brown. Even the shower in there, after a hot day, you had to shower in this brown water. Oh, it was horrible. But the flip side of it was there was no phone signal there. So it was a small crew just filming this film, and you literally couldn't do anything else. It was kind of, it was perfect for everything we needed. It was, no distractions and nothing to get back to, and no, as I say, we do commercial stuff as well. So none of the commercial stuff could get in our ears. It's literally, we could just focus on this film. And so the flip side of it is that was actually great. There was a certain aspect of it, in your fully grown guys, there's still a certain aspect. It turns into summer camp after a while, and people start losing it a bit. And by the end of the week, though, I think everybody was very very fine with getting off and going home. Yeah,
That's actually really interesting and kind of cool to hear. So it's like the whole cast and crew was isolated as well.
Yeah,
Literally.
We had to drive just to get about 10-15 minutes just to get one bar on your phone, just to let people know that we're alive, type thing, because the guys had families and things like that. So if anything happened, nothing they could do.
Wow.
So it was a really cool experience. Actually, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was in terms of halfway through, because you're filming for 14 hours. And once we finished, I was preparing the next day as well. And I ended up sleeping on the couch and things like that, because there's no point going up to the bedroom. I was just finish my thing, keep on the couch for a couple of hours and get up.
Crash.
So halfway through the week, you start getting a weird second wind, which helped. But so it was a strange experience, in terms of there's a strange PTSD of, God, we went through some stuff, but also something you'll never regret and something you always look back on, and something you're proud of, should we say, I suppose.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, let's see. So I know you worked with Rory Wilson, who's the lead in the film. He plays Chris Rivers.
Mm-hmm.
I know you worked with him on a short film before. What was it like working with him on the feature-length film, your first feature-length film, like I said? And was he always going to be the lead?
It was more, we did a 20-minute short film called Afterlife, Life with a Y, which is on YouTube. It's free to watch for anybody watch it. That's more for Halloween fans, should we say? A guy wakes up in a abandoned hospital with things in the hallways type thing, which was quite good. And Rory was the lead actor in that.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's still just, some people are a bit embarrassed about the short films that they did, but I really love Afterlife. But he was perfect on that, because when you film for a couple of days, didn't have any rehearsals. There's not a lot of talking in Afterlife, which is my only worry, because there's a lot of one guy on the phone. In Older Gods, one guy doing all this dialogue all the time. But it was brilliant. I was really being a director is one thing, you can kind of do everybody's job apart from being an actor. Not saying better than anybody. It's kind of, well, I know the camera a little bit, so I'm not as good as a cinematographer, but I can, I understand how to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The sound, but the acting part, that's beyond me. So the fact of just being able to remember monologues and things like that by yourself, because I was constantly, even though I wrote the thing, I was constantly asking, what's the next bit, Rory? So it was kind of, his preparation was really impressive. But Older Gods is all based around one person. So if his performance wasn't any good, the film wouldn't work at all. So the fact that he's so good in it, carrying it on his back, so to speak, by himself. I know he was delighted when we were filming, because it's mostly him, and then for the odd day somebody else would come in, they'd actually be able to talk to, which he was delighted about. So I'm really proud of what he does, and I think it's kind of one of those roles that will hopefully give him the next step to become a big star in the future, because he's good. He's really good, and I'd recommend him to any filmmakers out there.
Yeah, agreed.
Definitely. What was I going to ask? I've got another question now. From obviously writing the script to filming it, did it change much as you was filming? Did you think, actually this would be better, or that would be, or did you have to change a lot of it because of
a couple of things? We were going to do a lot more videos of him, because there's a lot of sequences of him going through this research that his friends left behind of what happened, and he's obviously researching this apocalyptic cult type thing. But we were going to do more kind of found footagey type things, which we just didn't find the time to do, unfortunately. So what we did, because he was supposed to originally just be listening to audio recordings. So what we did halfway through is Yain Coombs, who plays Billy, his missing friend, is the one who's leaving him all these messages. We actually decided to film him, and actually, so we have something to cut away, because you end up seeing flashbacks of him later on that we realize that without being able to see him, it kind of doesn't have the same effect. You know, it was just a voice and then a face. It takes a couple of minutes to realize, oh, that's him.
Yeah.
So it's little things more in the editing of, you realize that when you're writing it, you're like, we're not going to give away any answers. We're going to keep it all. And then you're watching the edit of it and you're like, we need to tell them something. So we ended up, there's little bits of filling in some gaps, which we might have thought. But the beauty of leaving messages and things like that, because the reason why films usually all bunched back into a certain amount of time is obviously you can't come back to it later because the actor's grown his hair out or shaved it off or put on some weight or lost some weight or whatever. The beauty of that is it's a flashback, so later on down the line it didn't matter when they were, so we can film it and things. That was the biggest part in editing. It wasn't really the writing. We all think kind of the script was pretty good. Filming it, we kind of had it all down to a T in terms of we only had X amount of time in this location. But when you do editing, you start seeing what would be good was, and we started using Yayin more for, or could you just record a sentence? Like the film starts with a big drone shot of this cottage and there's like a voiceover message that you hear. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of an afterthought of saying like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we just said that, because we obviously chopped out a couple of sequences that we thought added some mystery, but we thought all it did would slow it down. So instead of having a 10-minute sequence, we just had Yayin say something like, I've left a package for you at this cottage or something on those lines, where you realize that in editing, you can kind of dig yourself out of some plot holes, should we say. That was the biggest lesson learned for me as a filmmaker, was more, once you've filmed it, it's not the end of the world if you've missed something. You could use a bit of creativity to work out how to give the audience something or add feeling. And as you say, with music and things like that, a film completely changes tone as soon as you start adding music. And Gerald Buckfield, the composer, was really great in terms of, I didn't have to give him lots of direction. I kind of gave him like a playlist of things I'm interested in. And what composers hate is when you go, I like this song, make it like that. It's terrible. So it's more, I made a playlist of things to the feelings. Do you see what I mean? So we got the sense of the tone of it, and then he banged it out of the park. And all I really told him was things like I wanted like low resonance. Do you know, like when you get like a subwoofer speaker and it kind of rattles when it's too low. I wanted lots of that feeling. So it kind of feels like your head's throbbing. When things start going wrong, you kind of get a boom, 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 boom.
Yes, it worked really well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which when we watch it in a cinema or something like that, it's actually really unsettling. It's really kind of like, because you get the vibrations of it as well.
Yeah.
I bet that would be amazing.
Yeah, so we watched that in a couple of, like, we've been in lots of film festivals and things like that. So as soon as you get the what's it called, the surround sound and it just, a scene that you didn't think was, is this working? As soon as you put that sound and that music on it.
Booming. Wow, that would be awesome. I actually watched it on my phone at the gym, so not the same experience.
You need big headphones on there.
Yeah, I did, watch it with headphones, and there is a lot. Yeah, it's quite. That's what I was saying. I really did notice the score on it, I would say.
No, that's one of my favorite parts of it as well.
I need to rewatch. Go ahead.
Keith Lupton, who did the sound design on it, there was a lot of scenes which you kind of felt flat is the only way to do it, and then explain it, should we say? But then as soon as you start adding sounds from different directions and things like that, it instantly makes you go, because you get sick of looking at something when you're editing it. Before you've watched it a million times. As soon as you add something new to it, it gives you little shivers and realize that, oh, that's going to work. That's going to work.
Yes.
And something my mum told me recently, which is really interesting, because I always think sound is what actually, do you know what I mean? It's never what you see, it's always the sound.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently when I was a little kid, say watching Return of the Jedi or something, and what's the big monster in Return of the Jedi and the Jabba's hut, I would watch it but covering my ears. So it's kind of like I wouldn't care about the people being ripped apart and all that, but I couldn't handle the sound. So it's quite interesting that she said that when I talk about the film later on, when I'm pushing forward.
I think I did that with the Michael Jackson Thriller video. I'm kidding. I do have a question, actually a couple questions, but let me think. So you mentioned festivals. This isn't something I planned. What has it been like watching it with an audience, and what was it like the first time?
It's brilliant, because the problem with horror is you don't know if it's scary or creepy, or if it's working, until you put it in front of an audience. So it's kind of, you can tell when it's not working.
Yeah.
You can see, oh, this is flat, this needs working on, but you can't tell when it's really working. There's a couple of scenes, and sometimes you surprise yourself where you'll be in the audience and you're like, oh, really? That moment? That was the one that got you? When you think it's the one coming up in a second. But it was great. It was kind of, there was one, because just exporting the film into like a format which you can play in cinemas and is a whole deal by itself, and can take hours overnight and things like that. And sometimes you provide the file hoping that there's no glitches in it, and there's no. So the first film festival I watched it at, you just, my whole, but like you didn't care if they liked the film, you just wanted the film to not have any glitches, any pixelation or anything like that. But after the credits, because Older Gods caught quite a good credit sequence of like, it's like drums start and there's like a sacrificey type things at the beginning, and you just kind of see everybody's shoulders going back as if times are like, oh, right, this is going to be something. That instantly made me relax. And then somebody brought, because usually I eat popcorn at the film, but somebody brought me a beer, and it was just the best to just sit there, not watching the film, watching the audience, because there's certain ladies with, watching through their fingers, people jump, some popcorn went over on one bit, which really made me laugh. He just like a shake, and he just saw a little couple of popcorns going, because there's not really that film, there's not loads of jumps. I think it's just the fact that for the handful of jumps there are, because there's been I was trying not to give people a breath. I was trying to do that thing of, everybody thinks there's going to be a jump coming, but the worst thing you can do to them is don't have one. Just keep them feeling like one's coming. So there was a lot of that. So once you actually hit one, oh, sorry guys, it's literally started thundering. I think that's what set my dog off.
Oh, we can't hear.
Can you hear him?
Yeah, no, we can't hear your dog. No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. Hopefully
your power doesn't go.
No, it'll be all right. No, sorry. So just the feeling of watching it actually work was one of the best feelings I've ever had, really, in terms of sorry, it's literally started thundering like that. That sets them off, doesn't it? Sorry, my bad.
We had
do you want me to just?
No, we can't hear your dog at all, actually.
You can't hear him?
No, nothing.
Oh,
not at all.
So that seems like it's just in my head. Oh, I'm sorry. You have to.
What else do you hear?
But yeah, no, basically just being able to watch in front of an audience, watching that it's actually working is one of the best feelings I've ever had, really. It was because it's not, all you know is if it's not terrible. Do you know what I mean? Until you get in front of an audience, I think this bit works, but when you actually see people and you hear yelps and things like that. And what I've really liked is the feedback from women has been really good for Older Gods, because usually sometimes not saying it's mainly horror's really great as it is actually men and women, isn't it? But it's and just seeing a full cinema of a good mix of people, and it kind of worked for everybody was really good. I think it's Older Gods are one of those is, if you know what you're going, it's going to be a slow burn, because I think sometimes if you're fans of, do you guys like Midsummer or anything like that, or Hereditary? They're a bit slower, aren't they? And it's awesome. As long as you go in expecting that, you should be okay.
Yes. Well, even The Shining is slow, but the payoff in all the films you mentioned. Well, we mentioned that this is Lovecraftian. It's sort of a cosmic horror. what we thought we could do is talk a little bit about some of our favorite cosmic horrors.
Yeah, cool.
Before we do that, I wanted to read a description of what cosmic horror is for those watching who aren't 100% sure. Cosmic horror, also known as Lovecraftian horror, is a subgenre of horror that focuses on the horror that comes with the fear of the unknown and the incomprehensible. It's best known as emphasizing the terrifying nature of things. How's that for a summary?
That's
and I found that online. I can't take credit.
No, I think because I was talking to somebody before we came on, and I was kind of like, how would you sum up cosmic horror? And there's not, because it's something where it's usually something's being worshipped, or something's, there's something bigger than something which is all about how small we are on the grand scale of existence and things like that, rather than there's one danger from somewhere, like, which is a monster or an alien or a psycho or something. It's actually the dangers from everywhere in a strange way, or something's not right with the world.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's a really good way of describing it, really.
Yes. Awesome. Well, we each picked 5 films. Dave, do you want to go first? What was what's one of your choices?
So I haven't done them in any kind of order of kind of like favoritism or anything. And these ones are more kind of, they're either ones that have been favorites for a while, or ones I've seen. A couple of them I've just seen recently, which I thought were very interesting. The first one, which I think has become the first love a lot of like Lovecraftian, is The Void. I think The Void is great fun. It's a good mixture of the cosmic, the weird, the unknown, but also, if you're a fan of The Thing, Hellraiser, you love practical effects and things. It's obviously really influenced by things like From Beyond and things like that, with clear monsters not from here, but they're not aliens or ghosts or anything. Guys trapped in a hospital.
Triangle, right? Isn't that the triangle?
There's always a weird symbol. We got one of our own. There's always a strange symbol. You don't know where it's from. But again, low budget. It's got a really interesting making of you see on YouTube or something. But it's one of those. I don't know. Me as a film nerd, I don't like those 10-minute ones that are all just people being interviewed saying how great the film is. You like the 2-hour one, which is all about the horrific experience they went through to make the film. That's why I want to watch. So there's a really good one on that, and you see what they go through and how they use creativity instead of budget. But apart from all that, it's a really good film, which is often people obviously usually bang on about the prosthetics and the thing, but it's just an interesting film. And I found now where, if I'm talking with friends and everything about films I like, it's no longer what I think is a satisfying film. It's more just did I think it was interesting and different? Do you know, as you get to a point where you guys must be the same, where you watched 1,000 films, so you just want to see something different rather than just good. Because the amount of good films that I've watched that I've forgotten about, do you know what I mean? In terms of like, that was all right, that was a good film. And then 2 weeks later, somebody asks you if you've seen it and you can't remember. But The Void is a really good.
You want a movie that will stay with you. Long afterward. That's
and watch multiple times, because there's definitely, I watched it and I just went, oh, that was cool. But then you watch it a second time, you're like, oh, this happened, and there was clues to what happened later. And I actually, maybe the first time I watched it, I didn't quite understand what the bad guy or where the evil was and things like that. And you watch it again, you help. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's something to do with my attention span, but I miss so many things on the first watching sometimes. That second time you can enjoy it real, but
I need to go back to that film. I've seen it before, but
I think it's not cosmic horror, but I think Jordan Peele's films are really good for that. Do you know, like you'll watch Get Out or something, then you'll watch it again, and you go, oh,
yes,
she's not protecting him to the policeman. She's actually doesn't want the policeman to see it, get his ID. So do you know what I mean? Little things like that I love.
Yes, exactly. Nope was pretty good. That was kind of more cosmic horror.
That was Jaws. I reckon that was Jaws. That's essentially his version of Jaws.
I guess
but it's just instead of the sea, it's in some clouds.
I'm not gonna lie, I was so unimpressed with that film. I'm not.
You like Jaws, don't you? Isn't Jaws your thing?
Jaws is my favourite, but I liked it until it got to a certain point, and then when it went to that alien thing at the end, I was like, it's a big
it was kind of silly. Yeah.
I think he holds his inspirations on his sleeve a bit too obvious. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like when the alien, I don't know, spoilers alert for. What's the anime? Is it Evangelion? Evangela? I can't remember what it's called, but it's clearly turning into one of these things from that anime. It was, I don't know. It was very it's clearly he's got his version of instead of the Jaws, when you have the barrels, the yellow barrels, which is a brilliant piece of filmmaking because that's creepier than seeing this. So it's that he's got the wibbly, wavy arm guys instead, which is the same thing. But anyway, but no, that's kind of. But I do enjoy any kind of film that you watch it a couple of times, you get something extra from it if you watch it again. And I think The Void's one of those anyway.
I'll check it out. Ben, do you want to go next? Maybe we could just do our top three. So
I'll change
things along. I see you moving.
Sorry, am I banging on?
No, it's cool.
I've changed a couple of mine because your description of cosmic horror has kind of ruined it, Aaron.
Sorry.
I've got something Night of the Comet.
I haven't seen Night of the Comet, actually. A lot of people are saying that it'd be right up my street, apparently. And apparently that's, if you look at The Void, that's very much not ripping off you, but influenced by that as well. It's one of those ones that's just, do you know when you always think, why haven't I watched it? But what is it that you love about it?
I just love it's like the proper 80s feel movie. And with like sort of, you get the comet come down and it's kind of like this, there's a scene where it's really sort of pretty, I want to say. Like but yet, you know there's something dreadful coming.
That's it. That's all cosmic horror is. Something bad's gonna come.
Yeah, I just quite like that. And on top of that, I just thought it was a really good 80s kind of film. And the score's kind of like quite 80s synth mix of. It's good. Which has
come back a lot now as well, hasn't it? If you don't notice, especially horror, a lot of people trying to use synth more, which
Stranger Things,
which I don't mind. I'm into it.
All right, I'll go next. I picked a Adam Neville adaptation, Ritual.
I love The Ritual. I think it's really because it starts off rural. Is it rural? Can't even say it. Rural horror apparently is a category
rural genre.
That a lot of people put older gods in, and we will. What's rural horror? I think it's more like like The Wicker Man.
Okay.
Ritual. I think it's anything set in the country. I think basically is a horror film set in the country, but that's a good mix of both. That's right, and it kind of starts off as a guy's clearly going to be lost in the woods. Something's going to pick him off, type thing. But then it takes a bit of a weird turn in a good way for me, which I think in terms of it goes into Nordic gods and stuff, doesn't it? And
it's like
really cool creatures in it as well for them.
Definitely. I haven't read the book, but the movie is awesome.
I've got, I don't know, I'm trying to get into audiobooks a little bit more on Audible and things like that because I do a lot of driving to places. So I'm trying to get, The Ritual is actually on my wish list of things that are actually audiobook. I seem to have a load of audiobooks and I've only listened to like 3 of them. Trying to get in habit, but that is one.
If you get to it, you'll have to let us know. It's worth reading. Cool. All right, Dave, over to you. What's your next pick?
I've also got which apparently The Void took a lot of inspiration from, was The Prince of Darkness, John Carpenter's. John Carpenter's actually done a bunch, really, because doesn't he call, is it The Prince of Darkness, Mouth of Madness, and is it The Thing, which is the Apocalypse trilogy?
Mouth of Madness. Yep.
There it is. Is it The Thing, which is the third one? Or am I thinking he has a trilogy, which is the Apocalypse trilogy. I think it's The Thing.
They Live. Is that one?
It might be.
Yeah.
I can't, but no, I do love John Carpenter. It's just the fact that I like the way he's always, people always think I think he's only literally done a couple of studio films. Like The Thing was a big studio film. He hated it. Then he went off and just did lower budget independent. Just did it his way. I want to do this, and I'm going to make these films with wit. Because if you look at Prince of Darkness or
Mhm.
or Mouth of Madness or something. It's the kind of thing that if you did that in a studio, it would have been watered down, or it's too weird for it or something like that. But
Yes.
Prince of Darkness is very weird, but in a good way. Again, it's basically this guy they find.
Mhm.
Again, the weirder the film is, the harder it is to describe. But it's kind of, don't they find there's this old
Mirror, right?
artifact, should we say? Yeah, and underneath some building, and then somebody goes to. There's like a bunch of students that go and and then basically it's kind of like a seed film as well, isn't it? Where they're then trapped in this building where these people, which are clearly affected by it, try and get in. But again, low budget but brilliant. And again, it's not all jump scares, it's just weird, the creepy suspense, atmospheric. And I think one of his best, where it doesn't really, you tend to put obviously Halloween and The Thing and tend to go along with stuff, but I think it's one of his, should we say, I don't know, you seem maturing as a filmmaker, maybe?
I think that works. Alice Cooper's in it, so can't go wrong.
Yeah, in a good way. Yeah, because you think, is he the star of it? No, but he's
like the zombie in the alley.
He's like the leader of the creepy cult
or the
type
creepy
people outside.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but it works because he looks creepy.
Good choice. Oh yeah, it sure does. Yes, and I kind of like the unexpected ending, like in the future.
Yeah,
where you see, like, I don't want
with the mirror. There's always a bit like
away.
it's got a. I think they call it the Inception ending now, don't they? Where you have the thing spinning and you don't know what's, but
you don't know if
there's this thing with. If you haven't seen it, there's a thing with mirrors, and at the end he goes to see, and you work out if reality is real, if you can get into the mirror or not, and it just stops before he gets about there. And I love those endings.
Yeah. It's really good. All right, Ben, what did you pick next?
This is quite cosmic, actually. Life Force.
Life Force. Yeah,
that's a good one.
It's really
or like alien vampires,
space vampires,
space vampires. Yeah, they descend upon. Go ahead, Ben.
I love the beginning where they. How can I explain? What I love about this is what I loved about Alien was where they found the ship, and there's obviously something gone wrong on the ship, and as they discover, they find more kind of sort of stuff going on, and I just love that whole, again, I love that terror sort of feeling that know whatever they are going to discover, it's not great. You've got the cool
space vampires.
Yeah, some music and the really cool sort of neon purpley lighting, and
I think it's been not people turn their nose up at it a little. Just the fact that it's people like me being flippant saying space vampires, but it's clever. It's done a lot cleverer than that. It's essentially people found these beings that just tend to have the characteristics of vampires, aren't they? Rather than they're like wearing cloaks and stuff. But it's actually quite well done, and it's is it a British film? I remember everybody in it being British.
I think it is. Patrick Stewart's in it, right? I think
he is in it. Is that right?
I think he's like the psychiatrist or the doctor or something.
I think you're right. Yeah,
I think it's one that maybe not up everybody's street, should we say? But that's actually a cool version of the.
Who was it? Toby Hooper?
Yes, Toby Hooper. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Is it a Toby Hooper film?
I don't think I knew that.
I didn't know that. Is that before? Is that like before Poltergeist and?
Oh,
and all that? Is that well
I think
before?
It might be after.
Where are we? 1985. What was?
I think Poltergeist was 83, right?
Was it? Yeah, it was earlier than that.
I think it was earlier, 83.
But
I'm just throwing numbers out. I have no idea.
Was Poltergeist 2 or was it Steven Spielberg's?
Yes, of course.
That is the thing. He must be. Do you know if the thing is that if Steven Spielberg didn't actually do anything, Toby Hooper must be absolutely furious about that, because it's like, no, I did that. That was me.
Yeah.
I think the fact that Steven Spielberg was the producer, so he's his boss, so he is probably there on set. Just doesn't mean that he's doing anything.
He's doing, I actually picked out 8 cosmic, but I'm only going to go with a couple. I'm going to go with some of the more obscure ones I picked. Black Mountainside. I'm not sure.
I
if
haven't
you've
seen that
it.
one. I was seeing that a lot on kind of like top 10 cosmic horror
That's
lists
good,
and things like
yeah.
that. And I was like, what's it?
The creepiness factor jumps right off the scale. It's
Is that
kind of
where
it's kind of like
in
The
the
Thing.
snow?
Yes, they're in
And they're
like
in a
Antarctica.
cabin, and there's some sort of kind of infection. And they
Yes,
find like
so
this old
ice is melting and things that haven't been revealed for thousands of years. You just watched this?
Yeah,
Oh,
I did.
it's a pretty good ending, right? A slow burn, isolated. You've already forgotten.
I can't remember I can't remember the end.
That's not a glowing.
Right,
not a glowing recommendation.
Let's move on then. Dave, back to you. Yeah, you liked it then.
Yeah, Ritual was going to be my one. But one I saw recently, which is very interesting, was that In the Tall Grass, which I think is original Netflix film, which again, you don't hear people raving about it, but I watched it and thought it was really interesting. It's that kind of, if anybody's seen the trailer for it, it's basically a young couple and a guy, they all get stuck in this huge cornfield, so it's all in tall grass, but it's endless. They can't get out of it. It's like a labyrinth, and it starts making them essentially go a bit crazy. How they get lost.
That's good.
And it counts as cosmic horror because it's the what is keeping them there and making sure all happens. I thought it was really well done. I thought, again, it's a simple idea. I think it's a Stephen King and who's his son?
I was going to say very Stephen King-esque, if he maybe.
Yeah, I think it's Stephen King, and he's got who's his son, who's a good writer as well, but he's not King. He's actually changed. Joe Hill. Yes. I think it's Joe Hill and
they
Stephen
do a lot
King
of writing together. Yep.
I think it's a short book by them, which is very Stephen King. If you like cosmic horror, it is a huge cosmic horror. A lot of his work is something to do with there's something creepy. There's a lot of the Dark Tower and things like that. It's just yes, yeah. He's I'm not going to say he invented it, but I say that he helped bring it to the mainstream a little bit, should we say? Which is nothing but a good thing. But it's brand new blockbuster. Well, brand new, a few years old now, but that is a cosmic horror. It's just a well-made, jumpy one with lots of creatures in it. High budget one, should we say? But still a good good cosmic horror as well. But
The Mist, would you say The Mist is cosmic horror?
Yeah, I would. Because there's again, it's the unknown. It's something's coming. They do explain a little bit why these monsters start small and then get bigger and bigger, start coming into the mist, don't they? But it's all about where do they come from, and they don't really explain it.
Dimension, isn't it? Did they say they opened it up on the mountain? There's like
it was some research facility or something, wasn't it? But you don't know what they were doing. And I remember there's a soldier in the shopping market, who said he talks a little bit about what they're doing. But yeah, no, I think the Mist has got. I love the Mist ending. It's proper dark.
Oh my gosh.
That's the type of ending you'd read at like a script meeting if you were like an executive or something. You go like, yeah, you're not doing that.
No,
you're not doing that.
That's
but they let them, and it'll be remembered, and it is something. I always think the ones that affect you afterwards. Like there's a really good. It's not really a horror, but there's an old film in the 80s called Threads, which is about nuclear, basically what would happen in the UK if like nuclear bombs go off.
I can't remember that.
Horrible. It's but in a good way. I remember watching it because I remember I was in college when I watched it, and I didn't want to talk to anybody the rest of the day type because it's just dark.
It's very depressing.
Yeah, very because it's very realistic of what would happen. And
gosh, Threads. Okay. There's another one in the 80s called Testament, I think, which was set.
Yeah, I think they all kind of came out because obviously the Cold War and all that. I think they all started coming out at the same time. There
was a trend,
but Threads was one which was, it was weird. I think it was just like a TV movie that was supposed to be BBC forgotten about a couple of weeks later, but people just kept watching. It was just, it goes on for like years afterwards. How people have like stopped. There's no education anymore, and people can't communicate and. It's just so it's like the years afterwards of how everybody's dying, and then it's not cosmic or it's different, but it's just in terms it's just dark. It was, but that's the kind of thing you got from the Mist. That's cool. Bringing us back to the Mist.
I've heard the Mist in black and white is amazing. I haven't watched it yet.
That's a good idea. I like it when people do that.
But all the Blu-ray editions of The Mist now have the black and white option.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
I haven't checked it out yet though. But anyway, we digress. We digress all the time. We talk about things.
Yeah, I'm terrible for it. So.
No, you're awesome. You're a great guest. This has been fun. Ben, do you want to just do your last one? Do you have one more?
Actually, I've got one in mind, but I don't own it because for some reason I can't seem to get it over. And you're going on about Lovecraft is Underwater, which is I believe supposed to be like the Cthulhu. I'll get it out now.
At the very end, yeah. Spoiler alert for Underwater. So it's the thing with
right?
Underwater. Mm-hmm. I did enjoy it, but in a weird way, I'm not. Even though I'm the horror fan, I'm not sure it needed any of that. I think it was just a really interesting bottom of the sea disaster movie.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like the pressure's getting and they've got to get to the surface somehow.
Get to the top.
And then there's monsters in it. And you're like, oh, where did these come from? And then which I enjoyed.
Oh, do you?
Do you know what I mean? In terms of it wasn't bad. It was just were they sandwiched in a little bit or crowbarred in
sort of horror.
But there is a big thing at the end where I'm sure I read the director confirmed that was supposed to. That's Cthulhu that actually pops up in it, which is out of the blue, which is
completely. That's a fun movie. I saw it in the theater. That's a good pick.
I'll bet it was good in the theater actually, especially with the sound and everything.
Especially in the beginning when was it Kristen Stewart is in like that bathroom.
Yeah, and you see the hallway kind of
things start to crack, and she's looking around. Yeah, that was good.
That's why I thought it was great. It was just like a really good disaster film, and then it morphs into a monster movie, which is well done actually. And I used to be a bit sniffy about things like Kristen, for like the girl from Twilight and all that, but she's actually really good in that. I say that's one of the best performances, if anything.
All right, I'll go last. I got to do. I don't know. I was going to do Color Out of Space or The Endless, but I'll go with Color Out of Space.
The Endless was going to be on my list as well. But the Color Out of Space works because the Color Out of Space is the Lovecraft story because one of us has got to do an actual Lovecraft.
It's a cool slip cover, right?
Yeah, that's cool. But I like those. The Endless was one which was really just interesting. It was just again one of those which is weird. Not really giving away any because it's kind of like isn't people who left the cult and they kind of want to go back in
and they go back to visit,
and there's like these strange time loops and things like that and
is that where they throw the rope into the air
and it kind of like
and then at the end
in the darkness the rope kind of goes up. It doesn't explain what that is which is great.
It doesn't explain much at all, does it?
I like that.
Who are the guys
I've kind of in my old age, I've kind of just decided if I'm thinking about a film for hours afterwards, that was a great film. And if you just kind of an endless, I was constantly thinking, wanting to go, let me go watch that again. Now
that's one I bet there are a lot of nuggets if you rewatch that you didn't catch.
Yeah.
The first time.
I've watched it a couple of times. Must have watched about 3 times. And I remember the second time going, there's actually a film called Resolution, which is their first film where
Benson and Moorhead, I think they're
Benson and Moorhead. The two films are connected. It's actually there's a scene in it where these weirdos come from this cult, and it's those guys.
I'll have to check it out.
So the Endless is them when they're older and left the cult. And it's a really interesting film.
They did a third film, Resolution. I'll check it out. I haven't seen that, but then they did one about like time travel, right?
Yeah,
Synchronicity.
Yeah, that's it.
Synchronicity. Yeah, that was cool too. Oh my god,
that's cool. They've got like a weird Lovecraftian love story one as well called Spring, which is actually really good, where a guy travels to Italy, meets a beautiful woman. She just turns out to be a Lovecraftian type monster, but it's actually like sweet as well. It's like,
it happens.
Yeah, it's kind of it's
all right.
I'd recommend that. I really like those. They're another pair of guys who didn't wait for somebody else's permission to go and make films. which is a huge thing for us. Where there's a real, for any filmmakers who haven't seen it, it's kind of an iconic speech to something that Mark Duplass did on in like a South by Southwest or something, and he just called it "The Cavalry is Not Coming," where everybody's always writing a script in the terms of the cavalry is going to come and fund it, or I'll then get the film, or I'll fund my own film, but then the cavalry is going to come and distribute it and get out. And it's like the cavalry is not coming. You've got to do it yourself. So it's
oh, that's great.
By make little films yourself, just get a phone out, start filming it. Cameras on films are weirdly good now. They're just as good as cameras we had 10 years ago. And ones that cost £10,000, you know. But that's the trick. So we were guilty of that a little bit in terms of, especially when we were stuck doing the corporate stuff, that we were like working with these brands, going like, "Oh, let's get this out the way, but then we'll get somebody else to fund us." And the ironic thing now is kind of with Older Gods out, and with it out, and it's kind of funding itself, so to speak.
Yes,
we've got to the point where we don't need other people. Well, we can be picky, should we say, with other people, should we say? So you can have ones like Patriarch where we can say, right, we're going to have, if Publisher's got a much bigger budget, but we can basically say, oh, that's all falling out, you're all being difficult to work with. Okay, we're going to make another Older Gods size film ourselves and be perfectly happy with it.
And it's a good place to be in.
But it's a good, any filmmakers watching, that's a good, just go out and make stuff. That's the trick. Which is why, going back to Moorhead and Benson, if you look at their film biography, it's very much the same. I think they were doing commercials and stuff in their side time to pay for this resolution film, get into some film festivals, blah 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 blah.
Continue from there.
Yeah.
Well, this has been awesome. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, although it seems like we could talk for another hour.
Yeah, no, I'm terrible. I just bang on.
This has been awesome. I guess one last thing. So Ben and I have both seen the film. We're fans, which is why we are talking with you now. Would you, so for those watching who haven't seen it, what would you tell them to get them to want to watch it?
Okay, so
is that a tough one?
No. It's more so it's a story of a guy called Chris Rivers. He hears that one of his oldest childhood friends has gone missing after leaving some very disturbing messages, and so he travels into the rural countryside of he's American, so he comes over to this rural countryside in Wales, out of the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of a guy out of his normal back base. Basically, his mate Billy essentially leaves him this package of what went wrong and who's behind all this and how there's something not quite right in the world. So Chris starts investigating what happened to his friend, and he starts uncovering this apocalyptic cult that are worshipping something called the Origin, which is basically supposed to be some entity which is older and more powerful than any god that we pray to. So it's kind of but there's a sense to it that as you're watching it, that is he experiencing these things that's happening, or is he going slightly mad from the trauma of losing his friend? I'll leave that up to you. Yes. But it's out on Amazon, and I think it's out on Apple TV in the next couple of weeks. And
very cool.
By August, it should be on all VOD places, basically. I think in the US you can watch it for free on Tubi, but you just have to watch it with ads. But we've actually put it where you can actually rent it or buy it for £3 or something like that. So it's actually not crazy expensive here.
Well, it should be seen. Hopefully, many people watch it, and hopefully this video will get even more viewers for you.
Hopefully, yeah. No, I appreciate you having me on. And it's good to talk to some horror fans as well.
We could talk about horror movies all day long. So lastly, how can folks find you on social media?
So you can, the best thing to do is look for Wagyu Films, WAGYU Films on Instagram, YouTube, Threads now as well, apparently the new one.
Not the movie.
But anywhere that you can find me, David A. Roberts Film, on most places. But if you want to see lots of behind the scenes If you want to see lots of clips and things like that, if you find Wagyu films, you should be able to. You'll see lots of stuff about Older Gods and the next stuff that we're coming on as well, which we're excited about.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today.
No,
Ben,
thanks for inviting me on, guys. Appreciate
this
it.
has been great. Ben, do you want to do the quick closing?
Yeah. Obviously, thank you for watching. Head over to Instagram, follow us on there, like our posts. Also, if you watch this video, you've obviously come across it. If you don't, sub, because it helps us. And Dave, thank you for doing this video.
No problem. No problem.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Cheers. Thank you.